My name is Myra Wells, and I am 28 years old. 6 months ago, I boarded a plane in Los Angeles carrying a small silver box in my purse. I did not know it yet, but the object inside that box was about to detonate my sister's perfect life in front of 400 witnesses. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice one single time. I simply placed the box on a gift table and walked away. 20 minutes later, my sister opened it in front of the most powerful families in Boston. Her face went white. The string quartet stopped playing. A grown man in a $2,000 suit dropped his champagne flute. And somewhere in that ballroom, a stranger lifted a phone and began to film. That video would reach 3 million people in 72 hours. But here is the part that still keeps me awake at night. The gift I gave my sister was not expensive. It did not sparkle. It weighed less than a paperback book. And yet, by the time she reached the bottom of that box, she had lost her jewelry, her reputation, her fiancé's trust, and the illusion she had spent 28 years building. My sister has called me 47 times since that night. I have never picked up. Not once. Before I tell you what was inside that silver box, do me one small favor. If stories about quiet people finally finding their voice mean something to you, tap the like button and hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from and what time it is where you sit right now. I read every single one, and knowing you are there listening is what keeps me telling these stories. Now let me take you back. Not to the wedding, not yet. To understand why one small silver box could bring down an empire, I have to take you back to the moment I first learned that in my family, there were 2 daughters, and only one of them mattered. I grew up in a 3-story colonial house on Beacon Hill in Boston. From the outside, we looked like a portrait. Wealthy, respected. The kind of family that summered on Martha's Vineyard and wrote checks to the right charities. My father was a man whose handshake closed deals. My mother was a woman whose dinner parties made careers. Inside those walls, it was a different story. Victoria was 3 years older than me. She had the bigger bedroom. She had the designer clothes. She had the piano lessons and the ballet recitals my parents actually attended. I had the hand-me-downs and the silence. And for a long time, I believed that was simply the natural order of things. That some children were born golden and some were born to hold the coats. My 10th birthday was the day I finally understood I had been counting down for weeks. Double digits felt enormous to me. I imagined a cake with my name written across it in blue frosting. I imagined balloons tied to the banister. I imagined my mother pulling me into her arms the way she pulled Victoria. That morning, I woke up before the sun. I put on my favorite dress. I ran downstairs on bare feet. The kitchen was empty. My mother was in the study on the phone, planning Victoria's upcoming cotillion. My father had already left for the office. I stood in the doorway of the study for a long time before my mother noticed me. "Mom," I said, "it is my birthday." She covered the receiver with one manicured hand. "I know, sweetheart. One was my sister's. One was itcher. Then net a tears." I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to cry, trying to convince myself that later still meant something. And then I heard a soft knock on my door. It was Grandma Eleanor, my father's mother. She was holding a small, wrapped box and wearing the same perfume she had worn my entire life. Something warm and green, like a garden after rain. "Happy birthday, my darling girl," she whispered. Inside the box was a camera. Not a toy, a real one. Silver body, leather strap. Heavy in my small hands in a way that felt important. "You have an artist's eye, my dear," she said. She touched my cheek with a hand that was already beginning to tremble with age. "One day the world will see what I see in you." I did not understand her words then. I did not understand that she was planting something. A seed that would take 18 years to bloom. A seed that would one day fit inside a silver box, small enough to hide in a purse. But before I tell you what that seed grew into, I need you to understand what happened next. Because the camera was only the beginning. Grandma Eleanor was not simply giving me a gift, she was making me a promise. And she was watching, always watching. 8 years passed. I graduated high school with a full scholarship to the Rhode Island School of Design. One of the finest art programs in the country. I had been selected to give a short speech at the ceremony about pursuing your passion. I practiced that speech for 6 weeks in front of my bedroom mirror. I imagined my mother's proud smile. I imagined my father's firm handshake afterward. I imagined for the first time in my life that they might see me. The morning of graduation, I came downstairs in my cap and gown. My hands were shaking. Victoria sat at the kitchen table scrolling to her phone in a silk robe. My parents were huddled over my father's laptop. "The ceremony starts at 2, I said. "We should leave by 1 to get good seats." My mother did not look up. "Sweetheart," something came up. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "What do you mean?" My father finally glanced at me over the rim of his glasses. "Victoria has a networking event with Goldman Sachs. It is a huge opportunity for her career. We cannot miss it." I stood there in that ridiculous polyester gown, clutching 6 weeks of rehearsed sentences. "It is my graduation." I said photography is not a real career. My father's voice was flat as a closed door. "Maybe you should think about business school like your sister Victoria," smirked into her phone. I walked to that ceremony alone. I gave my speech to a room full of strangers. And when they called my name to receive my diploma, I looked out into the audience prepared to see nothing. Prepared to feel nothing. But I was wrong. There in the front row, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and pearls, was Grandma Eleanor. Clapping louder than anyone in that entire auditorium afterward, she took my hands in hers. Her fingers were cool and paper-thin. "Remember, sweetheart," she whispered. "The greatest treasures are not always the ones people fight over. Sometimes they are the ones quietly passed on." I did not understand what she meant. Not then. But 18 years later, standing outside my sister's wedding with a silver box in my hands, I would understand every syllable. 2 suitcases. A one-way ticket. Los Angeles. I did not say goodbye when I left. There was no one at the airport waving. No one crying into a tissue. No one telling me to call when I landed. For the next 10 years, I built my life in silence. I started as an assistant to a wedding photographer. I carried heavy equipment up cathedral steps in the rain. I adjusted lighting for brides I could not afford to be. I learned every lens, every angle, every shadow. I saved every penny that did not go toward rent. And slowly, client by client, referral by referral, something began to grow. My family never asked about my work. To them, I was still Myra, who takes pictures of strangers. Victoria called occasionally, but never to ask how I was doing. She called to perform. To update me on her achievements the way a queen might update a servant's senior marketing director at 29. Corner office. Engaged to a hedge fund manager. Every conversation was a monologue, and I was her only audience. "I just closed a 7-figure campaign," she said one evening. "What about you?" Still doing those little photo shoots. I was sitting in my office when she said it. The office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Los Angeles. The office with awards on the walls and a client list that would have stopped her heart. "I am doing well, Victoria. Congratulations on your campaign." "Thanks. Mom and Dad are throwing me a celebration dinner next week." "Obviously, you are not invited. It is just immediate family." Immediate family. I let those 2 words sit in the air like smoke. "Of course," I said. "Have a wonderful time." I hung up and looked around my office. Everlight Studios. My company. $3 million in revenue the previous year. Celebrity clients. Magazine features. A team of 12. Victoria had no idea. None of them did. And for a long time I told myself their approval no longer mattered. I told myself I had moved on. I told myself the little girl who cried on her 10th birthday had been buried a long time ago. Then Grandma Eleanor died and everything I had buried came clawing back to the surface. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing contracts when my phone rang. A Boston number I did not recognize. "Miss Wells, this is Harrison Lawson, your grandmother's attorney. I am sorry to inform you that Eleanor Hartwell passed away last night." The world stopped. I do not remember hanging up. I do not remember booking the flight. I remember standing in an airport bathroom staring at my own reflection and not recognizing the woman looking back. The funeral was held at Trinity Church. It was filled with hundreds of people whose lives she had touched. Grandma Eleanor had been a prominent arts patron. She had funded galleries. She had funded scholarships. She had funded emerging artists no one else believed. And I sat in the 3rd row alone. My parents were in the front pew accepting condolences like royalty. Victoria stood beside them in a black designer dress, dabbing her eyes with a linen handkerchief. And that is when I saw it. Something small. Something ugly. Between the sympathetic hugs, Victoria kept glancing at my mother. My mother kept glancing at my father. They were whispering. "The jewelry collection," I heard Victoria murmur. "Have you spoken to the lawyer about when we can?" "Not here," my mother hissed. "We will discuss it after." I stared at Grandma Eleanor's casket, while my family counted her possessions like inventory. My throat closed. My hands went cold. She deserved so much better than us. After the service, as the mourners began to file out, a hand touched my shoulder. "Mr. Lawson," the attorney, gray hair, kind eyes, a quiet voice. "Miss Wells," he said, "could you stay after? There is something your grandmother wanted you to have." My heart began to pound in a way I did not yet understand. I had no idea that what he was about to place in my hands would sit inside a silver box 6 months later. And I had no idea that when Victoria finally opened that box, she would not just lose an inheritance. She would lose everything. Mr. Lawson led me to a small office at the back of the church. He closed the door. He sat across from me and slid a manila envelope across the desk. "Your grandmother came to see me 2 years ago," he said. "She was very specific about her wishes. What I am about to show you is separate from her public will." I opened the envelope with hands that would not stop trembling. Inside were 2 documents and a letter. The first document was a notarized amendment to her estate. I read the words 3 times before they sank into my brain. The Hartwell jewelry collection, her entire private collection, valued at $2.3 million. Mine, not Victoria's, not my mother's. Mine. The second document was the appraisal. The third piece of paper was the letter. I opened it and Grandma Eleanor's handwriting rose up to meet me like her voice from another room. "My dearest, Myra, if you are reading this, I am gone. But I need you to understand why I made this choice. Victoria sees these pieces as trophies. Status symbols to be displayed and envied. But you, my darling girl, you see their history, their meaning. You understand that beauty is not about possession. It is about preservation. Your mother and sister will be furious. They will say I made a mistake, that I was not in my right mind. Let them. I have watched you grow into someone remarkable even when no one else in this family was looking. These pieces belong with someone who will honor them. They belong with you. All my love, Grandma Eleanor." I pressed the letter to my chest and wept in a way I had not wept since I was 10 years old. "There is one more thing," Mr. Lawson said gently. "Your grandmother requested that this remain confidential until you decide the right moment to disclose it." I nodded. I could not speak. I tucked the documents into my bag and walked out of that church carrying a secret that would sit in my heart for 6 months. A secret that would eventually fit into a silver box small enough to hide in a purse. I did not know then that I would use it at my sister's wedding. I did not know then that Grandma Eleanor had already begun writing the final act of a story. Only she could see 3 months after the funeral. I heard the news Victoria was engaged. Marcus Thornton. Old money from Connecticut. His family owned half the commercial real estate in New England. It was the kind of match my parents had always dreamed about. Wealth, marrying wealth. Status, cementing status. The wedding would be at the Grand Belmont Hotel in Boston. 400 guests. A 6-figure budget. Every detail planned to perfection. I waited for my invitation. Weeks passed. I checked the mail every single day. I refreshed my email until my thumb went numb. I told myself there must be a delay, that surely my own sister, my only sister, would not. Finally, I called my mother. "Mom, I have not received my invitation to Victoria's wedding yet. Should I RSVP directly to her?" Or there was a long pause. "Myra." My mother's voice was careful. "Victoria wanted me to talk to you about that." My stomach dropped. "It is just that the wedding is very intimate. Victoria felt it would be better if you did not attend intimate." I almost laughed. "I saw on her Instagram, but there are 400 guests." Another pause. "You know how you can be at these events. Awkward. We do not want anything to distract from Victoria's day." I sat in silence. The phone pressed to my ear. I see. I said finally. Thank you for letting me know, Mom. I hung up. That night, I scrolled through Victoria's social media until my eyes burned. Photos of her dress fitting, her engagement party, her registry at Tiffany. Comments from hundreds of people congratulating her, 400 guests. But not a single seat for her own sister. I stared at my phone for a long time, and then I made a decision. I want you to imagine you are standing where I was standing that night. Your only sister has just erased you from the most important day of her life. Your mother has just lied to your face and called it kindness. 400 people you have never met will drink champagne at a table that should have been yours. What would you do? Would you show up anyway? Would you walk away forever and never speak to them again? Would you send a scathing letter? Would you do something else? Something no one would ever see coming? Take a breath and tell me in the comments. I promise I read them. And while your fingers are on the screen, tap the like button and hit subscribe. Because what I did next was not any of the things you might expect. And what happened inside that ballroom broke every rule my family had ever taught me. I booked my flight 3 days before the wedding, Los Angeles to Boston. One was I did not tell anyone. I did not ask permission. I packed a small overnight bag and I prepared the one thing I needed to bring. A gift. It sat on my kitchen counter in a silver box with a white ribbon. Small enough to fit inside my purse. Light enough that anyone holding it would guess it was empty. The night before my flight, I could not sleep. I sat up in bed at 3 in the morning, asking myself if I was doing the right thing. Part of me wanted to stay in Los Angeles. To protect myself from one more rejection. To pretend I did not care. But I did care. That was the whole problem. For 28 years, I had been invisible to my family. I had accepted their dismissal, their favoritism, their casual cruelty. I had built a life 3,000 miles away and told myself it was enough. It was not. I was not flying to Boston for revenge. I was not going to make a scene or ruin Victoria's day. I just wanted to do one thing. I wanted to give my sister a wedding gift. I wanted to be seen. Just once. As someone who existed, at 6 in the morning I put on a simple navy dress. I applied my lipstick with a hand that had finally stopped shaking. I looked at myself in the mirror. You can do this, I whispered. I picked up the silver box and tucked it into my bag. As my plane lifted off the runway, I closed my eyes. I did not know what would happen when Victoria opened that box. I did not know if it would change anything or nothing at all. But I knew this Grandma Eleanor had trusted me to find the right moment. Some truths cannot stay buried forever. The moment had finally come. The Grand Belmont Hotel was everything I had expected. And more crystal chandeliers the size of small cars. Marble floors polished to mirrors. Enormous floral arrangements in the lobby that probably cost more than most people paid in rent. A string quartet played softly near the entrance while guests in designer gowns and tailored suits streamed toward the ballroom. I stood at the edge of it all, clutching my silver box. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it inside my ears. I smoothed my dusty rose dress, modest, elegant. And I walked toward the reception table. 2 young women in black sat behind a guest list that looked like a small novel. Good afternoon, I said. I am here for the Wells-Thornton wedding, of course. Name, please. Myra Wells. I am the bride's sister. The woman smiled and looked down at her list. Her finger traced the W column once, twice, a third time. The smile faded. I am sorry, ma'am. Your name is not on the list. Could you check again? WELLS. She flipped through several pages. The second receptionist leaned over to help. Their manicured fingernails moved across paper like small nervous insects. There is a Harold Wells, one of them said. A Patricia Wells. A Victoria Wells, soon to be Thornton. She looked up at me with something that was not quite pity. No. Myra. The ballroom doors were open behind them. I could see white tablecloths, towering centerpieces, hundreds of people laughing and drinking champagne, 400 guests. But my name was not on the list. The receptionist shifted uncomfortably. Mom, is there someone I could call for you? No. I said quietly. That is all right. I will handle it myself. I stepped away from the table and pulled out my phone. My hands were completely steady as I dialed Victoria's number. It rang once, twice, and then my sister answered. Hello. Victoria's voice was sharp, impatient. Behind her I could hear the buzz of the cocktail hour. Glasses clinking, music playing. Laughter that belonged to other people. Victoria, it is Myra. A pause. Then a long sigh. What do you want? I am kind of busy. I am at the hotel. My name is not on the guest list. Silence. I waited. I know, she finally said. That is because you are not invited. Even though I had expected it, the word still landed like a slap across a cheek that had already been slapped 100 times before. I am your sister. And Victoria laughed. A cold, brittle sound like ice cracking on a pond. You really think you would be invited? This wedding is for people who matter. Myra. Important people. Not someone who takes pictures for a living. I closed my eyes. I flew across the country. That is your problem, not mine. I did not ask you to come. I just wanted to give you a gift, to wish you well, a gift. She snorted. What could you possibly give me that I do not already have? Let me guess, a homemade photo album, a coupon for a free portrait session? I said nothing. Let me make this very clear, Victoria continued. No one wants you here. Not Mom, not Dad, and definitely not me. You have always been an embarrassment to this family. Go home, Myra. Go back to your little life in California and stop pretending you belong in mine. I stood in the hotel lobby surrounded by strangers and let her words wash over me. I could have fought back. I could have yelled, cried, begged. I did not. I understand, I said. My voice was calm, even. I will leave your gift at the reception table. Fine. Whatever. Do not cause a scene. She hung up. I stared at my phone for a long moment, and then I smiled. Because I knew exactly what was inside that box, and I knew exactly when she would open it. The gift table was a monument to excess. Hundreds of wrapped boxes in every size. Tiffany blue, Hermes orange, glossy white with golden bows, crystal decanters, silver frames. Envelopes that undoubtedly contained checks with many zeros. I walked toward it slowly, my silver box in hand. The receptionist who had turned me away watched from her post. Her expression was uncertain, sympathetic perhaps. Or just confused by the woman who had been rejected but had not left. I found an empty spot near the edge of the table and set my gift down. It looked small among the grandeur, humble, easy to overlook. Easy to underestimate exactly what I wanted. I pulled a card from my purse and tucked it under the ribbon. To Victoria. From your sister, Myra. Ma'am. I turned. The receptionist had approached. Her voice was gentle. Are you sure you do not want to stay? I could try to speak with the wedding coordinator. Maybe. No, thank you. I gave her a small smile. Some gifts speak louder when the giver is absent. She blinked, clearly unsure what to make of. That I took one last look at the ballroom doors. Somewhere inside my family was celebrating. My mother was probably complimenting Victoria's dress. My father was probably shaking hands with important people. And Victoria was probably glowing, basking in the attention she had always craved. None of them were thinking about me. That was fine. They would be thinking about me soon enough. I turned and walked through the lobby, past the chandeliers, past the string quartet. Past the beautiful people in their beautiful clothes. I did not look back. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and clean. I took a deep breath. I pulled out my phone. I booked the next flight home. As my taxi pulled away from the Grand Belmont, I glanced once more at the hotel through the rear window. 400 people were about to sit down for dinner. Somewhere in that ballroom, a small silver box was waiting on a table, and in less than an hour, my sister was going to reach for it. But before I tell you what happened when Victoria untied that white ribbon, I need to take you back 2 months. Because what looked like a coincidence at that wedding was not a coincidence at all. Fate. Or perhaps Grandma Eleanor's spirit had already dealt one final card into my hand. A card even I did not know I was holding. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was at my desk, reviewing invoices, when my assistant knocked on my door. Myra, you have a call. Someone named Caroline Ashford. My heart skipped a full beat. Caroline Ashford was a legend in the wedding industry. Owner of Ashford Events, the most exclusive wedding planning agency on the East Coast. She had coordinated ceremonies for senators, celebrities, old money dynasties spanning 6 generations. She had also been Grandma Eleanor's closest friend for 40 years. I picked up the phone, Mrs. Ashford. It has been a long time, too long, my dear. Her voice was warm, familiar. Eleanor spoke of you constantly, you know. She was so proud of what you have built. My throat tightened. Thank you. I am calling because I have a bride in Boston who needs a photographer. Very particular. Very demanding. She wants the best. And I told her Everlight Studios is the best. I appreciate the referral. There is one thing you should know. Caroline paused. The bride is your sister? I sat very still. I did not move. I do not think I breathed. Victoria signed the contract last week, Caroline continued. She has no idea you own the company. She just saw our portfolio and fell in love with the work you knew. And you still recommended us. Your grandmother would have wanted this, Myra. She always said the truth finds its own way out. Caroline's voice softened. The contract is already signed. $15,000 non-refundable deposit. When you show it personally is entirely your choice. I stared out my window at the Los Angeles skyline. My sister had hired me. She had signed a contract with the company she did not know I owned. She had paid $15,000 to a woman she called a failure, and she had no idea. There was something else Victoria did not know. 1 month before the wedding, she had hosted a bridal brunch. I heard about it through Caroline, who heard about it through the Boston social circuit. 30 women. A private room at the Four Seasons, champagne and crustless sandwiches, and Victoria holding court like a queen. The topic of conversation was the Hartwell jewelry collection. Grandma's pearls will be my something old, Victoria had announced to the room. The collection is worth over $2 million. It has been in our family for generations. How wonderful that it is going to you. Someone said. Well, obviously. Victoria had smiled. I was always Grandma's favorite. She knew I would appreciate those pieces properly. Not like my sister, who would not know a Cartier from a costume piece. My mother had nodded along, sipping her mimosa. Your grandmother would want you to have them, sweetheart. You were always the one she was proudest of. What neither of them knew. The collection was already mine. It had been mine for 6 months. Victoria had contacted Mr. Lawson 3 separate times trying to claim the jewelry before the wedding. He had politely deflected each request, citing ongoing estate matters. She assumed it was just paperwork delays. She had even commissioned a custom display case for her dressing room, ready to receive her inheritance. She had told Marcus's family about the collection, old money impressed by old jewels. She had told her friends. She had probably already planned which magazine she would show them to. And all of it was built on a lie she did not know she was telling. She believed she was entitled to those pieces. She believed Grandma Eleanor had loved her best. She was about to find out how wrong she had been. And 400 of Boston's finest citizens would be watching when she did. Now, back to the present. My taxi dropped me at Logan Airport just as the sun was setting over Boston Harbor. The reception would be starting soon. Dinner service. Toasts. The cutting of the cake. And at some point, according to our family's tradition, the bride would open a few select gifts. I found a seat in the airline VIP lounge and ordered a coffee. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched planes lift off into the orange sky. My phone sat on the table in front of me. Silent, no calls, no messages. Not yet. I thought about Grandma Eleanor. About the way she had looked at me when no one else did. About the camera she had given me when I was 10 years old. The one that had started everything. The greatest treasures are not always the ones people fight over. Sometimes they are the ones quietly passed on. I understood now. She had known exactly what kind of woman Victoria would become. She had known my parents would always choose my sister over me. And she had made sure that when the moment came, I would have the truth on my side. Not revenge, just truth. I sipped my coffee and checked my watch. 7:45, the cocktail hour would be over. Guests would be seated. The MC would be warming up the crowd, preparing to invite Victoria and Marcus to open a few special gifts before dessert. My silver box was waiting. Inside it a copy of Grandma Eleanor's amended will. her handwritten letter to me. A photograph of the two of us together at her favorite jewelry shop when I was 18. And one more piece of paper folded at the very bottom that Victoria would not see until the very last moment. A single sheet that would take her breath away in a completely different way. I smiled to myself. Any minute now. Any minute. And nothing would ever be the same. Let me take you inside that ballroom while I sat quietly in an airport lounge 3 miles away. The Grand Belmont was magnificent. 100 tables draped in ivory linen, centerpieces of white roses and hydrangeas reaching toward the crystal chandeliers. A string orchestra playing softly as waiters in white gloves served the third course. 400 guests. Boston's elite. The Thornton family's extensive network. Victoria's carefully curated collection of impressive friends. And at the center of it all, my sister She was radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown. Diamonds sparkling at her throat and wrists. Marcus sat beside her, handsome and adoring. Exactly the kind of husband she had always said she deserved. My parents were at the head table beaming. My mother kept dabbing at her eyes, overwhelmed with pride. My father shook hands with Marcus's father. 2 patriarchs sealing an alliance across generations. Nobody mentioned my name. Nobody noticed the empty chair that should have been there. During the cocktail hour, Victoria had circulated through the room, accepting compliments and air kisses. When someone asked about the jewelry she was wearing, she had leaned in conspiratorially. Just wait until you see Grandma's collection. I am inheriting it, you know. Over 2 million in heirloom pieces. I will be wearing the pearls to the Met Gala next spring. Her guests had oohed and I ate appropriately. Now as dessert was being served, the MC took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a special moment. Our beautiful bride and groom would like to open a few gifts before we cut the cake. Victoria clapped her hands in delight. Marcus smiled beside her. A table piled high with presents waited nearby, and sitting at the edge, almost hidden among the Tiffany boxes and Hermes packages, was a small silver box with a white ribbon. Victoria did not notice it. Not yet. Victoria floated toward the gift table like a queen approaching her throne. Let us see what treasures await, she announced. And the room laughed politely. She opened the first box. A crystal vase from Baccarat. Applause. The second. A set of sterling silver candlesticks. More applause. Each gift received a gracious smile and a murmur of appreciation. Then her hand landed on the silver box. She picked it up, glanced at the card, and let out a short, brittle laugh. Oh, look, she said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. A gift from my sister. The one who could not even afford to show up properly. A few guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Marcus frowned slightly. Victoria let us see what she got us. A homemade coupon, probably. Or one of her little photographs. Victoria untied the ribbon, still smiling for the crowd. She lifted the lid. Inside was an envelope. Thick. Official looking. Her smile flickered. She pulled out the papers. Unfolded them slowly. The first was a legal document covered in stamps and signatures. The second was a handwritten letter on cream stationery. The third was a photograph. An elderly woman and a young girl standing outside a jewelry shop. Victoria's eyes scanned the legal document. Her face went white. Then red. Then white again. What is it? Marcus asked. Leaning over, Victoria did not answer. Her hands were trembling. The letter slipped from her fingers and drifted to the floor like a leaf falling in slow motion. At a nearby table, my mother noticed something was wrong. She stood up. Victoria, sweetheart. Victoria looked up from the papers. Her face was a mask of shock and disbelief. This cannot be real, she whispered. This cannot be real, she whispered. This cannot. Grandma loved me. She would never. She stopped. 400 guests stared at her in absolute silence. And sitting at the bottom of that silver box was one more piece of paper she had not yet unfolded. My mother reached the head table in seconds. What is it? What is wrong? Victoria thrust the papers at her with shaking hands. Patricia's eyes scanned the document. The notarized signature. The legal seal. The words that declared the Hartwell Jewelry Collection, the sole and exclusive property of Myra Eleanor Wells. The color drained from my mother's face. This has to be a mistake. It is not a mistake. Victoria's voice cracked. It is dated 2 years ago. Before Grandma even got sick, whispers began to ripple through the ballroom. The guests closest to the head table had seen enough. The bride's stricken expression, the papers trembling in her hands. Is that not the jewelry she was telling us about earlier? Someone murmured. The $2 million collection. She said it was hers. Victoria heard them. Her face twisted. This is fake, she said too loudly. She held up the papers like evidence of a crime. My sister forged this. She has always been jealous of me. My father appeared beside my mother, his expression grim. Let me see that he read the document. Then he picked up the letter from the floor. Grandma Eleanor's handwritten explanation. Victoria sees these pieces as trophies. Myra sees them as memories. I know who will honor my legacy. His jaw tightened. Harold. My mother's voice was thin. Tell me this is not real, but my father did not answer. He recognized his mother's handwriting. He knew her signature. He understood perhaps for the first time in his life what Eleanor had seen in both her granddaughters and what she had chosen. This cannot be happening. Victoria snatched the letter back, tears streaming down her face. Not today. Not at my wedding. Marcus stood frozen beside her, watching his bride unravel in front of 400 witnesses. He looked lost. He looked like a man who was just beginning to realize he did not know his fiancée at all. Wait, Marcus's voice cut through Victoria's sobs. He was staring at the silver box. There is something else in there. Victoria looked down. At the bottom of the box, half hidden by tissue paper, was another folded document. She pulled it out with trembling fingers. It was a contract, a photography contract. The header read, Everlight Studios Wedding Services Agreement. Victoria's eyes dropped to the signature page. Client Victoria Wells. Owner and proprietor. Myra Wells. Amount paid. $15,000, non-refundable. She stared at it. Her voice was barely a whisper. No. Victoria. Marcus took the paper from her. His eyes widened as he read. You hired her company. You told me your sister was struggling. That she could not hold down a job. I did not know. I did not. Victoria spun around, wild-eyed. Where is the photographer? Where is the photographer? A young woman with a camera stepped forward nervously from the corner where the photography team had been working all evening. I am sorry, ma'am. I am the lead photographer. Ms. Wells, Myra Wells. She is the owner. She does not typically attend shoots personally. You work for her? The photographer nodded carefully. Everlight Studios has photographed over 200 weddings. We are one of the top firms in the country. The ballroom was completely silent now. 400 guests. Every single one watching Victoria's carefully constructed world crumble in real time. Someone at a nearby table pulled out their phone. Did she say 2 million? And the sister owns a photography company. The one Victoria has been calling a failure for years. Marcus was still holding the contract. His face unreadable. Victoria. His voice was quiet in a way that was much more frightening than any shout. What else have you lied about? Victoria could not answer. She was too busy reaching for her phone. She needed to call me. She needed to scream at someone. She needed to fix this. But some things cannot be fixed. I am going to pause for 1 second here because I need to check something. Raise your hand in the comments if you saw all of that coming. Because honestly, even I did not expect everything to unravel this quickly. Victoria just discovered that the grandmother she thought loved her best actually saw straight through her. And the sister she called a failure owns the company that just photographed her wedding. If you are still with me, tap that like button right now. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do it. Because Victoria is about to make a choice in the next few minutes that will define the rest of her life. And what happens when Marcus finally speaks to his parents? What happens when the video hits the internet? What happens when my mother finally shows up at my office door 3,000 miles away? You do not want to miss any of it. Back to the ballroom. The whispers had grown into a steady murmur. Victoria stood at the head table, mascara streaking down her cheeks, the damning papers clutched in her hands. My parents flanked her like sentries, though they looked just as shell-shocked as she did. That is when Caroline Ashford stepped forward. She had been watching from a quiet corner of the ballroom. The elegant wedding planner who had orchestrated every detail of this perfect day. Now, she walked toward the head table with the calm authority of a woman who had seen 40 years of Boston society at its ugliest, if I may. The room quieted. Caroline took the legal document from Victoria's trembling hands and examined it briefly. "This is authentic," she said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "I witnessed Eleanor Hartwell sign this amendment 2 years ago. I was present when she discussed her wishes with her attorney." Patricia stepped forward. "Caroline, you cannot possibly." "I can, Patricia." Caroline's voice was gentle but firm. "Eleanor was my dearest friend for 40 years. She told me exactly why she made this choice." "Then tell us," Victoria cried. "Tell us why she would do this." Caroline looked at her with something that resembled pity. She said, "Victoria sees jewelry as trophies. Myra sees them as memories. She said your sister was the only one who ever loved her for who she was, not what she owned." The words hung in the air like a chandelier that had just come loose from the ceiling. At a table near the back, someone was definitely filming now. She also said something else. Caroline folded her hands. She said, "Myra never asked me for anything. Victoria never stopped asking." That mattered to her. Victoria's mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time in her life, my sister had absolutely nothing to say, and 400 witnesses had heard every single word. "There is something else people should know." The voice came from the back of the room. A man in his 60s stood up. Silver-haired, distinguished, wearing a suit that cost more than most cars. "Richard Payton, CEO of Payton Media Group. One of Marcus's father's oldest friends, I know." "Myra Wells," he said. "She photographed my daughter's wedding last year in Malibu. 600 guests. She was brilliant." A murmur swept through the room. "Wait." A woman at another table raised her hand. "Myra Wells, as in Everlight Studios. They shot our foundation gala. They have been featured in Vogue." More guests began to speak up. "They photographed the Whitmore ceremony last spring. I heard they are booked 2 years in advance. A friend of mine told me she turned down a celebrity wedding because her schedule was full." Victoria's face was a mask of disbelief. "That is impossible." "Myra is. She takes pictures of strangers. She is nobody." "Actually," Richard Payton said, not unkindly, "she is quite successful. Her company did over $3 million in revenue last year. She is one of the most sought-after wedding photographers on the West Coast." My mother grabbed the back of a chair. $3 million. She looked like she might faint. My father stood very still, his face unreadable. But I knew that expression. He was calculating, re-evaluating, realizing just how wrong he had been for how many years. "She never said anything," he murmured. "Why would she?" Richard replied, "From what I understand, your family was not particularly interested in listening." Victoria spun toward Marcus. "This does not change anything. She is still trying to ruin my day." "She is still," Victoria. Marcus's voice was cold in a way I am told no one had ever heard from him before. "Stop talking." His bride fell silent. And in that silence, the truth settled over the room like dust after an explosion. 3,000 miles away, my phone began to ring. I was still in the airport lounge, nursing my second coffee, watching the last light fade from the Boston skyline. The screen lit up with Victoria's name. I let it ring. She called again, and again, and again, 5 times. 10, 15. Then my mother's name appeared. Then my father's. The text messages started flooding in from Victoria. "Pick up the phone right now," from Victoria. "You ruined everything," from Victoria. "How could you do this to me?" from Mom. "Myra, call me immediately. We need to talk," from Dad. "This is unacceptable. You will explain yourself," from Victoria. "I will never forgive you for this," from Victoria. "The whole room is staring at me," from Victoria. What was in that box? I watched the notifications pile up. The screen glowed with their rage, their desperation, their demands. 47 missed calls by the time I finished my coffee. I silenced my phone and slipped it into my bag. A gate agent announced that my flight to Los Angeles was now boarding. I gathered my things and walked toward the departure gate, past families reuniting, past couples saying goodbye, past business travelers typing on their laptops. Nobody in that airport knew what had just happened in a ballroom across the city. Nobody knew that a family was fracturing in real time. that a bride was crying in front of 400 guests, that a truth hidden for years had finally clawed its way out of the shadows and into the light. I handed my boarding pass to the agent and walked down the jetway, but just before I turned off my phone, one more message arrived. Not from Victoria, not from my parents, from Marcus. And what he said made me stop cold in the doorway of the plane. From Marcus. Myra, this is Marcus Thornton. I am sorry to contact you like this. I got your number from the Everlake contract. I stood in the airplane doorway, passengers streaming past me. Reading his words, from Marcus. I need to understand what happened tonight. Victoria is inconsolable, but she will not explain anything. She just keeps saying you betrayed her. Another message appeared from Marcus. She told me you were mentally unstable. That you had issues and could not hold down a job. That your family had to cut you off for your own good. My chest tightened around something sharp from Marcus. I believed her. I never questioned it. I never tried to meet you or hear your side. I am realizing now that was a mistake. A flight attendant touched my arm. Ma'am, we need you to take your seat. I nodded and walked to my row, still reading from Marcus. The reception ended early. Half the guests left after Caroline spoke. My parents are asking questions I do not have answers to. I do not know what to believe anymore. I buckled my seatbelt as the final message came through, from Marcus. I am not asking you to explain yourself. You do not owe me anything. But I wanted you to know I am sorry. For whatever part I played in this. For believing her without question. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed back. From Myra. Thank you for reaching out, Marcus. I have no ill feelings toward you. Whatever you decide about your relationship, I hope you find clarity. His reply came almost instantly, from Marcus. The wedding is over, but I do not know if the marriage will be. I need time to think about everything. I turned off my phone as the plane pushed back from the gate. Time. That was the one thing none of us could ever get back. The flight home was quiet. I sat in my window seat watching the lights of Boston shrink below me, thinking about Marcus's message, about Victoria's screams frozen in text, about my parents' demands that I explain myself. The thing is, I did not have anything to explain. I had not forged those documents. I had not tricked Victoria into hiring my company. I had not done anything except deliver a truth that Grandma Eleanor had entrusted to me. The truth about the jewelry. The truth about who I had become. The truth about what my family had refused to see for 28 years. Somewhere over Pennsylvania, I made a decision. I would not call Victoria back. I would not answer my parents' demands. I would not apologize or defend myself or beg to be understood. For my entire life, I had accepted their dismissal. I had made myself small. I had hoped that if I was quiet enough, good enough, successful enough, they would finally notice me. But I was done hoping. As the plane crossed the Rocky Mountains, I wrote a note on my phone, not a message to send, just words for myself. I will not close the door on them. But I will not hold it open forever either. They have to choose to walk through. That was my new boundary. If Victoria wanted to apologize, really apologize, I would listen. If my parents wanted to know me, really know me, I would give them a chance. But I would not chase them anymore. I would not perform my worth for people who had never bothered to look. I put my phone away and closed my eyes. By the time we landed in Los Angeles, the sun was rising over the Pacific. It felt like the beginning of something. Or maybe the end. Either way, I was ready. I did not find out about the video until the next morning. My assistant Jenna was waiting when I walked into the Everlight Studios office. She had her phone in her hand and an expression somewhere between amazement and concern. Myra, you need to see this. She turned the screen toward me, a TikTok video, already at 2 million views and climbing. The caption read, "Rich bride finds out her loser sister is actually a millionaire." Someone at the wedding had been filming. The video showed Victoria at the head table, her face shifting from smug to confused to devastated as she read the documents. It captured Caroline's speech. It captured the guests murmuring. Richard Payton's revelation about my company. Marcus's cold command for Victoria to stop talking. The comments were endless. The quiet ones are always the ones you underestimate. Grandma knew exactly who deserved that jewelry. This is the most satisfying thing I have ever seen. Victoria's whole life just got fact-checked in front of 400 people. I scrolled through thousands of reactions. Strangers who had never met me cheering for a woman they only knew from a 30-second clip. Your name is trending, Jenna said quietly. Everlight Studios got 300 inquiries overnight. I sat down slowly. I had not wanted this. I had not filmed anything. I had not posted anything. I had not tried to go viral. I just wanted to be seen by my family. But now the whole world was seeing something. My phone buzzed. An email from a reporter at the Boston Globe. Miss Wells, we would love to interview you about the viral wedding video. I deleted it. Cancel my meetings today. I told Jenna. I need some time to think, because this was not over. This was only the beginning. And I had a feeling my family would be showing up at my door very soon. 3 days later, my mother appeared. I was in my office reviewing proofs from a recent shoot when my receptionist buzzed Miss Wells. There is a woman here to see you. She says she is your mother. I closed my eyes for a moment. Then I stood and walked to the lobby. Patricia Wells stood near the entrance looking utterly out of place. She was dressed in her usual armor. Chanel, pearl earrings, silk blouse, perfectly coiffed hair, but her eyes were red-rimmed and uncertain. She stared at the reception desk, at the awards on the walls, at the framed magazine covers featuring Everlight Studios. This is yours, she said when she saw me. All of this, yes, you never told us. You never asked. She flinched. I led her to my office and closed the door. She sat in the chair across from my desk. Her hands folded tightly in her lap. I came to talk about what happened. I assume you ruined your sister's wedding. Her voice cracked. How could you do that to her? I was not at the wedding, Mom. I was not invited. You know what I mean. That stunt with the gift. I leaned back in my chair. I gave her Grandma Eleanor's truth. The documents are real. The will is legal. Everything in that box was authentic. But why? One had humiliated her in front of everyone. I did not humiliate her. She humiliated herself. I kept my voice steady. She spent months bragging about jewelry that was never hers. She lied to her fiancé about me. She told everyone I was a failure. My mother's face crumpled. Mom. I leaned forward. I spent 28 years being invisible to this family. I am not asking for an apology right now. I am just asking for honesty. She stared at me, and then for the first time in my entire life, my mother actually looked at me. My mother's gaze traveled slowly around my office, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Los Angeles. The awards displayed on the shelves. Industry recognitions. Magazine features. A framed letter from a senator thanking me for documenting his daughter's wedding. The photographs on the walls. Each one a testament to a career built entirely in silence. Her eyes landed on a picture of me with Grandma Eleanor taken at her 81st birthday. We were laughing about something. Our heads tilted together, and then Patricia Wells began to cry. Not the delicate tears she produced at social events. Real sobs, ugly and raw, shaking her entire body. We failed you, she said between breaths. I failed you. I did not move. I did not speak. I let her have the words Victoria always demanded so much. She was loud about what she wanted, what she needed, and you were just quiet. You never complained. You never asked for anything. She wiped her face with trembling hands. I thought that meant you were fine. I thought you did not need us. I stopped needing you, I said quietly. Because I knew you would not be there. She flinched like I had struck her. I thought she struggled to compose herself. I thought we were giving Victoria extra attention because she needed it more. But that was not true, was it? She needed it because we taught her to need it, and you stopped needing because we taught you not to hope. I said nothing. Eleanor tried to tell me. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. She said I was losing you. I did not listen. I thought she was being dramatic. She looked at me with red eyes. I do not expect you to forgive me, Myra, but I needed you to know. I see it now. I see what I did. I let the silence hold. Then I nodded. It was not forgiveness, but it was a start. Before she left, my mother told me about Victoria Marcus postponed the honeymoon, she said, her voice hollow. He is staying at his parents' house. He says he needs time to think about everything, about whether he still wants to be married. My mother nodded miserably. The video made things worse. She pressed her fingers to her temples. It is everywhere. 3 million views now. People at Victoria's company have seen it. Her boss called her in for a meeting. They asked her to take a leave of absence until the situation quiets down. I felt a strange heaviness in my chest. Not satisfaction, not joy, just heaviness. There is more. My mother continued. Marcus's parents, the Thorntons. They called you father. They asked if there was anything else Victoria had lied about. They are old money, you know. They care very much about family reputation. And Victoria could not answer them. She tried. She said you had manipulated everything, that Grandma Eleanor was not in her right mind when she made the will. My mother laughed bitterly. But Caroline Ashford is friends with the Thorntons. She told them the truth. So Victoria had lost more than the jewelry. She had lost Marcus's trust, his family's respect, her professional reputation, the perfect image she had spent her entire life constructing. She blames you, my mother said. She says you destroyed her life on purpose. I did not destroy anything. I just stopped pretending. My mother stood to leave, gathering her purse with shaking hands. At the door she turned back. Eleanor always said you were the strongest of us all. Her voice cracked. I think I finally understand what she meant. She walked out. I sat alone in my office for a long time after that. Watching the sun sink toward the Pacific strong was not how I felt. But I was not broken either. A week after my mother's visit, I went to the bank. The Hartwell collection was waiting for me in a private vault. 12 pieces of exquisite jewelry that had lived in my grandmother's family for 6 generations. Pearl necklaces from the 1920s. Art Deco diamond earrings. A sapphire brooch that had once belonged to a duchess. I held each piece carefully, thinking about the hands that had worn them, the stories they carried, the love they represented. Victoria had wanted these as trophies, status symbols to photograph and display and brag about at charity galas. But Grandma Eleanor had seen them differently. Beauty is not about possession, she had written in her letter. It is about preservation, I understood. Now I arranged for the most historically significant pieces to be loaned to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, where they would be displayed in the decorative arts wing with a plaque honoring Eleanor Hartwell's legacy. The rest I would keep safe. One day, if I had children, they would inherit them, along with the stories of where they came from and what they meant. As I was leaving the vault, the bank manager handed me a sealed envelope. This was in the safe deposit box as well, Miss Wells. We did not notice it before. Inside was a short handwritten note. My darling Myra, one more thing I did not tell you. I left Victoria something too. A small pearl bracelet that was my own mother's. Simple, not valuable, but meaningful. If she can understand its worth, I hope someday she will. Love always, Grandma Eleanor. I stood in the bank lobby and let the tears fall. Even in death, my grandmother had hoped Victoria might change. Maybe she would, maybe she would not. Either way, I would honor Grandma Eleanor's memory the only way I knew how, by being the person she had always believed I could be. 6 months have passed since Victoria's wedding. I am still in Los Angeles, still running Everlight Studios, still building the life I created from nothing. The viral video eventually faded the way these things do. My name is no longer trending. The reporters stopped calling, but some things are different now. My mother calls once a week. Awkward, halting conversations at first, neither of us knowing what to say, but slowly we are learning. She asks about my work. I tell her. She listens. It is a beginning. My father sent a letter. 3 pages. Handwritten. Apologizing for years of blindness. I have not written back yet. I am not sure what to say. But I am thinking about it. Victoria and Marcus are in couples therapy. She called me last month, the first time since the wedding. She did not apologize exactly, but she did not attack either. She just said, I am trying to understand. Maybe that is all she can offer right now. Maybe someday it will be more. Here is the thing I have learned through all of this. The night I flew home from Boston, I sat in that window seat and I thought about the little girl who woke up on her 10th birthday, hoping for balloons and a cake. Nobody sang to her that day. Nobody wrote her name in blue frosting. Nobody made her feel like she mattered. But an old woman with paper-thin hands climbed the stairs and knocked on her door. And that old woman placed a camera in her lap and looked her in the eye and told her that one day the world would see her. I am not crying because I finally proved my family wrong. I am crying because Grandma Eleanor was right. She saw me when nobody else did. She believed in me when I did not believe in myself. And when she was gone, she made sure I had the tools to finally see myself the way she had always seen me. If you are watching this right now, and you have ever felt invisible in your own home, if you have ever been the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one who was told your dreams were not real careers, the one who was never invited, the one who was told to be smaller, please hear me. There is someone in your life, maybe a grandmother, maybe a teacher, maybe a stranger you have not met yet, who sees you, who knows exactly who you are becoming, who is planting seeds inside you that you cannot see yet. Your job is not to make the people who cannot see you finally see you. Your job is to become the person the people who love you already know you. I did not show up at that wedding to destroy my sister. I showed up to finally exist, and the gift I left on that table was not a weapon. It was a mirror. It simply reflected back to Victoria the truth about who she had chosen to become. Some of you will hear this story and think, Myra should have forgiven her family sooner. Some of you will hear this story and think, Myra should have never spoken to them again. Both of you would be right, because there is no rulebook for surviving a family that never chose you. There is only the boundary you draw, and the door you leave slightly open, and the day you finally look in the mirror and whisper, I am worth being seen. If this story reached something inside you, please do 3 small things for me before you go. Tap that like button. It sounds like nothing, but it tells more people who feel invisible that stories like this exist. Hit subscribe, because I have more stories coming. Stories about people who were counted out and refused to stay quiet. Stories about the quiet ones who finally spoke. And in the comments, tell me one thing. Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you loved? What did it cost you? What did it give back to you? I read every single comment. Every single one. Because you are not invisible to me. If someone in your life needs to hear this, share it with them tonight. And the next time you feel small, the next time you feel forgotten, the next time someone tells you your dreams are not real, remember the little girl on Beacon Hill who woke up on her 10th birthday hoping for a cake. Remember the old woman who climbed the stairs with a camera in her hands. Remember that the greatest treasures are not always the ones people fight over. Sometimes, they are the ones quietly passed on. Sometimes they are